Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're returning, thanks for coming back. Today I'm sharing my reading plans for August. I know at the time of this recording we still have a full week left in July, but I wanted to come on and make a TBR video instead of a wrap-up video because I'm still finishing up a couple of books and I think I'll be able to finish them by the end of July, and I'll be talking about them next week. For August, I'm actually going to be challenging myself to read books that are on my physical shelves. I have a bunch of books I bought this summer and a book I've pre-ordered that'll be arriving this week. I have a tendency to buy books and then spend more time reading my library holds than the books I bought. All the books I'm showing you today are the only books that I have left to read from my shelves, minus one book that I'm saving until winter, since I'm mostly a seasonal reader, and that book is set in winter. So I'll go in order from my oldest book on my TBR list to my most recent purchases. So without further delay, let me show you what I'll be reading this month. The first book on my list is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. This was the book I bought for myself as a Christmas gift because it's so beautiful. The cover and illustrations are created by a French artist named Bea Rabé, I think is how you pronounce it. I'll post a link to her artwork in the description box below. I absolutely love her style of art. It's just so whimsical. Let me see if I can show some pictures from the inside. So the book just has a bunch of cool illustrations like this throughout. Let me see if I can find one more. Yeah. So I just think this is so beautiful. I put off reading this book because it's set in summer and because I've heard it's really depressing. I've read Sylvia Plath poems in high school and college, but I've never read her novel. All I know about this book is that it's about a 19-year-old girl named Esther. And she comes to New York on a college scholarship and she ends up struggling with depression. So I think I want to start with this one first because I'll have more humorous books to read after it, which will kind of make the rest of August feel a little bit lighter since I'll be starting off with such a heavy book. The next book on my list is Introduction to Sally by Elizabeth von Arnim. I first discovered the works of Elizabeth von Arnim when Miranda Mills reviewed her book The Enchanted Garden on her YouTube channel. I love Miranda Mills, so if you haven't seen any of her videos, you're definitely missing out. She's a British booktuber who shares her book recommendations as well as travel vlogs to gardens and other bookish places. I've gone on to read many more books by Elizabeth von Arnim. Some I really enjoyed, like The Enchanted April and Fräulein Schmidt and Mr. Anstruther, but some not so much, like The Caravanners. I'm still trying to make my way through that book. I don't want to DNF it, but it's a real struggle to continue. So Introduction to Sally seems like it's going to be a really funny book. It's about this gorgeous girl named Sally, and people are obsessed with her because of her looks. At the start of the book, her parents are like really stressed out because of how beautiful she is, so they feel like she needs to be protected from men who will obviously throw themselves at her. Then they're able to relax once she's actually married, and then her husband becomes super stressed out and obsessed because all these people keep looking at her. It seems like it's going to be very strange. So basically, it seems like there's going to be a lot of interesting commentary about the male gaze, about women's virtue, about marriage and class issues. So I'm really looking forward to this book. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like a whole video dedicated to Elizabeth von Arnim books, because I believe this is going to be my 9th von Arnim book. Next two books I picked up from Alice's Haunted Little Bookshop in Mystic, Connecticut. I made a whole video about this little bookshop, so if you want to check that out, I think it's the first video that I posted on this channel. The first book is How to Kill Men and Get Away with It by Katie Brent. I don't know much about this book. Based on the brief blurb on the back, it seems like it will be a horror comedy about a woman who becomes a serial killer. I think I'm really going to like this one because the first page starts out with the following quotes. It says, "When we are struck at without reason, we should strike back again very hard. I'm sure we should, so hard as to teach the person who struck us never to do it again. Jane Eyre. It seems I could do anything when I'm in a passion. I get so savage I could hurt anyone and enjoy it. Little Women." So just the fact that it starts off with these violent quotes from some really great sweet classics, I really like that. So it has me intrigued. That's probably the book that I will jump into right after reading The Bell Jar. I think I'm going to go in the order of the books I'm talking about here. The next book is Curse of the Reaper by Brian McCauley. I've already read the first chapter because I couldn't help myself, and so far I really enjoy the writing style. It's about a man named Howard Browning who used to be a killer in a horror movie franchise from the 1980s called Night of the Reaper, but now it's decades later, and he mostly spends his time on the convention circuit trying to sell his photos. He couldn't really get other roles because he was typecast into horror villains. But now they're rebooting the movie series, and he's being replaced by a younger man named Trevor Main, who is a former child sitcom star who is also fresh out of rehab. And it seems like both men are dealing with a lot of internal conflicts, and I'm curious to see how this book will deal with the topic of addiction and how it weaves psychological and slasher horror together. So I'm anticipating that this will be the scariest book on the list this month. The next three books on my list I recently discussed in my last video about the event I attended at my local Barnes & Noble. So if you're curious to hear about those books and their authors more in depth, I recommend checking out that after this video. Night Watching by Tracy Sierra is about a mother who's alone with her young children during a blizzard when she discovers an intruder, and it sounds absolutely terrifying. The next two books are two mysteries, and they're each the first in a series. This one is Blood Sisters by Vanessa Lilly. It's a mystery about a Cherokee archaeologist who is working in Rhode Island when she's suddenly called back home to Oklahoma because her sister has gone missing, and also they've discovered a skull, which is in relation to a crime from her childhood. And the book highlights current real life problems in our society, Indigenous women who are going missing or murdered each year. So I appreciate that Vanessa Lilly is choosing to focus on this issue in novels in order to increase awareness on this important topic. Last but not least, we have The Disappearance of Trudy Solomon by Marcy McCreary. This series features a female detective who's working on a case that connects to a cold case that her retired father worked on. And all I know about this series is that it highlights their father-daughter relationship and is based on a real-life case. And it takes place in the Catskills as well. If you're enjoying this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to help my channel grow. I'd really appreciate it. This month, I also plan on rereading House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig because it's been a few years since I've read it, and I've already pre-ordered the next book in the series, House of Roots and Ruin, and that's scheduled to arrive sometime this upcoming week. These books are part of a YA Gothic fantasy series with romance in them, and it's based on the retelling of a fairy tale called The 12 Dancing Princesses. I love Erin A. Craig's writing style, and she also has a YA Gothic horror fantasy coming out in September called The 13th Child. That's not a part of the Sisters of Salt series, so I'm looking forward to checking that out as well. Those are all the books on my physical TBR, and if I can get through all 9 of those books, I do plan on reading Penance by Eliza Clark. I'm intrigued with this book because I love modern day epistolary style novels like the books of Janice Hallett. All I know about this book is that it contains interviews and other research conducted by a journalist who's reporting about a decade-old crime involving a teenage girl who was murdered by 3 other girls from her school, and it sounds really dark, and it seems there might be some plot twists in there. Lastly, I have some books that I'm looking forward to reading on audio. The first is called A Very Woodsy Murder by Ellen Byron that comes out this month in July. This is a cozy murder mystery about a twice divorced woman who decides to impulsively buy an old mid-century modern hotel outside of a national park with one of her ex-husbands. She's twice divorced. They know nothing about running a motel, and they know nothing about living in the rural woods with bears and other wildlife. So of course, one of their guests get murdered and they have to solve it, and it sounds hilarious. I also want to read What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. This is a thriller perfect for summertime. It's about a group of kids who got a man sent to prison when they were 11 for the murder of one of their friends, but they knew they were lying the whole time. Now they're adults and they want to uncover the truth about that night and what's actually hiding in the woods. And the next thriller that I want to read is A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. This book is about our main character, Chloe Davis, and when she was 12, a bunch of young girls went missing in her town. By the end of summer, her father confessed to all the murders and was sent to prison for life. Now it's 20 years later, and Chloe is a psychologist about to be married when another girl goes missing, and it's looking like a possible copycat. So that sounds really intriguing to me. I'm really into thrillers and horror books at the moment, so if you have any good recommendations for me, please let me know. Thanks so much for sticking around to watch this video. Let me know if any of these books sound appealing to you. If you've made it all the way to the end, leave me a tree emoji in the comments, since I've noticed a lot of the books on my TBR take place in the woods. Thanks so much, and I'll be back with another video next week. Have a great week.